up-and-coming leader in Earl Thomas there for that ball club, and a lot of guys that can obviously perform for a while in Seattle. I'm agreeing with Phil, and maybe even 8 wins is a little bit of a stretch. They do have somewhat of a tough schedule. And of course they play the Niners twice. Maybe I don't see it a stretch for them to perhaps even downgrade to some degree with Russell Wilson starting at quarterback. Maybe they even go 6 wins with that tough division there in the NFC West.
Yeah, I think it's mainly going to depend on, the growing pains on Russell Wilson. Is he going to come out and be a phenom like Cam Newton? Probably not. But, I think the best way to look at it, to answer your question on a bottom line, this team will go as good as Russell Wilson can make them. And as a rookie, that might be a little bit hard to expect from a guy. So I think it's really going to go on Russell Wilson. He'll probably have some growing pains, and that would be the main reason why they're not necessarily improving from last year.
All right, thanks, Megan. So you guys have a great show.
All right, thank you, man.
All right, that was Robert Dieters on the air, and I would have to agree with him. Maybe we do have a good show up and coming. We are live on National Sports. This is the NFL Goal Line with Nick Rice, Phil Nunziata, 1,000 Mics, and Spreaker simulcast here. We are heading towards the end of our show. We still have some good topics left to discuss, including the top story in Indianapolis. Breaking news for the Colts. They receive Vontae Davis from the Dolphins in a trade for the Miami Dolphins. The Colts receive Vontae, one of those guys that can really help that cornerback unit, and the Dolphins get a 2nd and 6th round pick respectively. And as for Indianapolis, is Vontae Davis one of those guys in his 4th year, hasn't really performed in the way that I expected. I was very high on Davis, and anybody else that could really see Davis coming out of the first round of the draft. How do you think Davis helps improve this Colts defensive unit that did indeed allow the worst completion percentage in the NFL last year, along with the 2nd worst quarterback rating with a 103.9?
Well, the most interesting thing for this whole scenario was, the Colts owner, tweeting, which you don't see a lot of owners tweet unless it's, Jerry Jones, but about how they're going to make a big splash before the beginning of the year. They're going to make a huge trade, and it had me and you talking about it, off air, and plenty of football fans around the world. Who's it going to be? Are they going to bring in Maurice Jones-Drew? Are they going to try and get Mike Wallace? To hype it up as much as he did, to bring in Vontae Davis, who is a very solid corner. I think it was almost a disappointment if you're a Colts fan or someone who just wanted to see a big trade happen, but as I say that, I don't think that this was a bad move. I think this was a very good move. As you said, a 2nd and 6th round pick. Here's a guy, Vontae Davis, 1st round selection in 2009, 25th overall from Illinois. He's been in the league for about 3 years now. He has 150 tackles, 1 sack, and 9 interceptions on his career so far and counting. So here's a guy, one thing, their owner did say he was going to do is bring in a veteran starter, and, this is a very good definition of a veteran starter, someone who can help their team out. The Colts definitely have to rebuild their defense, and this could be a good start. The only thing I don't like about it is the way he hyped this up to the point that it's almost a disappointment to bring in a solid player. At the same time, I do feel it was a very good move.
I feel like, in a way, for the Colts, yeah, it was a disappointment. And even more so, Vontae Davis has been a disappointment in himself in his own NFL career. Now, 9 interceptions in 3 years, not something you want to say, hey, that's who we're bringing in, our solid number 1 guy that can make an impact for Indianapolis. But maybe in year number 4 for Davis, this is a breakout year for him. We're just skepticalizing right now. Only 9 INTs in 3 years. Not going to get it done for a top 10 selection previously with the Dolphins. And honestly, for Vontae, it's one of those things, you do get a fresh breath of air finally out of that Dolphin heat, and maybe with the new system intact, the Colts, moving from a 4-3 scheme to a 3-4 scheme, maybe less impact on the cornerback's position, but for Vontae, it's one of those things where it's now or never for this cornerback, because he's really had one of those careers that you wish you had more production out of him. The Dolphins more willing to let him go, not even getting a first-round pick out of him. It's interesting how they wouldn't put so much on the line to let go of this guy so early in his career. Maybe it says something to how he'll perform for the Colts this year.
Well, true, they did not get a first-round pick back for him, but I think getting a second-round pick is still, a pretty decent, amount, a second and a sixth. And, 6 rounds are always what you make of them. At that point, it comes down to, your research and who you can get in the 6th round. But the way I look at it, here's a guy, 9 interceptions over 3 years. So, you do the math, that's, 3 interceptions a year. And if you have a second or third corner that's getting you, 3 interceptions a year, that's a pretty solid player. So, with the Colts bringing him in, I don't know that they have some grand scheme to turn him into a number 1 guy, or if they're going to turn him into, a very reliable second corner or nickel. I know the Colts also this year, a move that went, relatively unnoticed is they signed Justin King, the former cornerback from St. Louis, who is another guy. They drafted him in about the 3rd round out of Penn State a few years back, a very solid, 2 to 3 interception a year guy. So if this is a defense they're going to use by committee, it could turn out to be a very good move. They can just get a lot of solid younger guys for this Indianapolis defense.
And I agree with the fact that Vontae, a 2 to 3 INT guy, is going to be an improvement on this Colts D. And with how bad they played last year, it can only go up for this squad. And their bottom point was that pitiful game for New Orleans. But for Indianapolis, I don't think they got very good of an acquisition. I don't see him being, one of those things you give up a second-round prospect for Vontae Davis. I mean, I agree with what you're saying on the fact that Davis can be a 2 to 3 INT guy that can help your ball club, but I just don't see this move. Obviously, disappointment for the entire Indianapolis organization, but I mean, for Vontae, it's one of those things, it's now or never. I mean, if he doesn't improve, I don't see this being a positive for the Colts.
Maybe we have a little bit of difference of opinion on here. I think it comes down to what you expect from the guy. If you're expecting him to be, your number 1 shut down, Nnamdi Asomugha, Darrelle Revis kind of player, then yeah, it's overall going to be a failure. But it really comes down to what the Colts are expecting from him. If you're expecting him to be a second to third guy, this could be a plan that works out. So I think it really just comes down to what they expect from him and what they ask him to do now that he's on their team.
Yeah, and for Vontae, he was, I don't know. Just for Vontae, I don't see him being one of those guys. Yeah, he's not a Nnamdi Asomugha. We can all point that out right now. But, I mean, for the Dolphins, they took him in the 1st round, expecting a lot of great things out of Vontae. Obviously very disappointing. And then the Colts give you pretty much the same exact thing back. You do expect Indianapolis. This isn't a low 2nd round pick. I do see, even with luck coming in, this is a top 10 2nd round selection where you can get another guy to help out your ball club. The Dolphins, you can name off just how many team needs that the Dolphins need this year. Not quarterback anymore, but receiver, maybe tight end, some defensive guys to help out your team. Another draft pick. I feel like, if anything, the Dolphins got the better end of the deal, but the Colts did. I mean, you do have a nickel guy that you can trust. He's a veteran with the Dolphins. He did help that cornerback crew with his stint in Miami. But, I mean, again, I think that the Dolphins got the better end of this deal.
Yeah, I think we can both agree on that. I think the Dolphins definitely made a good deal, which is not something you're accustomed to seeing. The Dolphins don't tend to make the big splashes, attempting to get Peyton Manning, for example. That didn't pan out. There's a lot of guys, with the exception of, Reggie Bush, they haven't really signed a lot of, big-time guys. And I think it's actually pleasant to see, the Dolphins be on the positive end of a trade for the first time in a while.
And for Miami, yeah, you did mention this organization did make some sort of a positive effort. That might just be the new impact of head coach Joe Philbin. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in his first year with the Dolphins. Obviously, Miami with Chad Johnson, all of his ways off the field antics. It'll be interesting to see how the Dolphins respond in their first year with Philbin on the sidelines. But for another question, we head over to Dallas now. Another huge key that the Dallas did in fact try to make during a few years back is try to get that number one receiver. They got Dez Bryant early on to be the third 88 for the Cowboys, all in their entire franchise to be that go-to receiver. They had Drew Pearson early on in the 60s and 70s for that ball club. Then Michael Irvin was a key guy in the 90s. I think maybe for the first time, Jones took a step backward. Now, for Brian, it's been a lot of off-the-field problems, and things have not gotten better right now. It's a breaking story, and obviously one of those things that scratching a few heads, for people around the National Football League. Bryant is now required to have around-the-clock security on this guy because, of all the stuff he's done off the field. The Cowboys feel like now if he's under surveillance 24/7, he'll be a better receiver. Now, I don't know if that's exactly the key. And the Cowboys proved last weekend they can win without the likes of Austin and Bryant. Kevin Ogletree did, in fact, have a good game. He's had a good preseason, in fact. And you have some other guys, not the number 1 and 2s that you think of, but can make a solid contribution for Dallas.
Yeah, see, with this whole situation of the round-the-clock security, it's really a situation where Dez Bryant, trying his best now to remedy his mistakes, and he wants to be, a big factor on this football team. And when you have when it comes to helping somebody with their problem, you don't do these things to somebody, you do them for somebody. Jerry Jones and the rest of the organization feels that by doing this, they're going to help Dez Bryant out, not just as a receiver, but just as a person. He's obviously having some troubles, in his decision making, and if he can be man enough to explain that he needs help in some of these situations, not going to strip clubs every night, having people around to tell him, Dez, that's not a good idea, instead of the posse that he's probably had since his college days telling him that whatever he says is right. It's a guy that, a lot of money, a lot of fame. Not everybody knows how to handle it, and Dez Bryant apparently hasn't handled it well up to this point. But overall, I could definitely see that, with everything they're doing for him with the security and, kind of monitoring him, that overall it'll have a positive effect on him on and off the field.
Obviously off the field, no more distractions, at least you would hope, for the Cowboys, that they no longer have to worry about this guy being an off-the-field issue. But, with the fact that Brian has been given so many chances. He's had a really rough background in his childhood. We mentioned the most recent issue for Brian is that he was accused of a misdemeanor assault on his own mother. Now, whether that results in any jail time or any on-the-field kind of problems for Bryant remains to be seen. But for the Dez Bryant, it's just one of those issues where I don't see this so late in his NFL career. Now, he's still a young player, but, with all the problems he's made, I think it's more than just treating him like a child again. It's one of those things like it's just not really a fit, I guess, for the NFL. And Bryant is just one of those guys that I don't see making a 1,000-yard year you would expect this year for Dallas.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. You've I don't think we've ever seen a guy, a full-grown man with, essentially babysitters, around the clock for him. It is an interesting situation. But on the flip side of that coin, if he ends up getting that 1,000-yard, receiving year, maybe a Pro Bowl, something along those lines, people can point to it, and, maybe some receivers that have off-field issues, Dez Bryant being in Dallas and being a first-round draft pick gets a lot of attention for being that person. But there could be plenty of players in the NFL that have decision-making issues that maybe just aren't as famous. I could think, hey, maybe if I get the help I need and I get people around me to say, no, don't do that, it could help me on the field. So, this could easily turn into a positive, but it all depends on how Dez Bryant takes it. Overall, he doesn't seem to be the most mature of individuals, so it'll really be interesting to see, does this pay off or not for Dallas?
Yeah, and for Dallas, they show that they can win without the likes of Dez Bryant and Miles Austin. Now, you do expect Austin. He hasn't really had very many off-the-field problems. You do expect this receiving core to perhaps not as much as you would expect, but can produce with, the guy in the likes of Kevin Ogletree. And I'm also a fan. I've seen the Cowboys produce so far in this preseason.